Welcome, everybody. It's my pleasure to introduce today's two presenters. We have Allison Werning and Mary Cochran. They both are intergenerational co-founders of Launching Labs, and they'll be presenting on branding and public relations for your startup. Mary, we'll start with Mary, PR, marketing, social media, and analytics. Hi, Krista. Mary has 20 years of marketing, public relations, and social media expertise that she's brought to creating Launching Labs. Her years at strategic consulting companies bring an understanding of the startup environment and business operations. She has experience at a high-tech PR firm. Mary has helped promote over 80 companies. Her extensive background gives her the ability to create quick solutions to business issues. And Mary graduated with a BS in management from Pepperdine University. Allison Werning, specialty is branding, web marketing, and design. Allie brings her years of experience as a marketing manager and accessories designer in Boulder. Her graphic vision and writing skills add depth to branding and marketing solutions. She graduated with honors in product development at FIDM in Los Angeles, and with a BS in merchandising from Colorado State. So Mary, Allie, thank you very, very much for sharing your insights with our Forge and Now community that are with us and those who will be viewing this valuable webinar in the near future. So Mary, Allie, I turn it over to you both.
Thank you very much for having us. Good morning.
Or good afternoon, wherever you are.
And it's nice to see you both again.
Yes. So we're here to talk about branding and PR for your startup, for entrepreneurs, really depending on where you're at as a company. And it can be anywhere from the shoestring budget startup to somebody with a lot of financing and financial backing behind them. But we really like to focus on, where are you and where are you going? So to start out, we like to look at, in helping a startup get going, you really want to know where do you want to end up? Kind of like planning a road trip. If you're headed to California, you need to know that that's where you're going, and so you point your car west. So we like to start with asking our clients or people that are new with startups, do you have a business plan? Do you have a company statement? And that really helps to get you started, get you to know what your plan is, who your customer is. And it might not be the formal business plan that you did in school, but it's, just write down what your company is, what your ideas are, and, where do you see yourself? When you succeed, where do you want to end up?
And it's great to just jot this down, at least in writing, it's some way or another, and without judgment. Mm-hmm. So just describe where you are and where you want to be, but without coloring it with, but I don't think I can get there, yeah. or how am I ever going to manage it? Just put down what it is, factual, and go from there.
And so from that point, with having a business plan and a company statement, we really encourage a fact sheet and logos and branding. And those kind of go along together, where you want to be able to send out, what is your company philosophy on a fact sheet? What are your highlights? What are your main call outs? What's your mission statement? Things like that. And your logo and branding really fits into that. And that's, as Jim mentioned, that's my expertise, and that's my focus, is really being able to get you something that tells people who you are. So when it comes to logos and branding, it seems like everybody throws around the name Fiverr and companies like that you can get a logo for really cheap right here for your startup. And for some people that works. It really depends on what your company is, but I've really found that if you can incorporate what your vision is, what your company is, what your brand philosophy is into your logo, that you can really be a little bit more successful because you'll be more passionate about your brand. And then when it comes to after you have that brand, that website and Facebook page work really well together, and having a corporate video. So kind of moving forward, to explain a little bit more of what branding is. Branding is the way that your customers see you, and it's the way that the world sees you as a whole. And it's that, feeling that people get when they see your logo or when they see your company name. So obviously Exxon gives a different feeling than McDonald's and then St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So each of those things have a very solid brand, but they're going to evoke different emotions. And when it comes to branding, you want to, again, know where you want to go with it, and know what you want to tell people about your company. So you can tell them, we're a children's hospital and we help kids get better, and that gives one emotion, versus we're a fast food company and we feed you when you're hungry, when you're on the go and you're starving. So that's a little bit about branding. But from there, you really want to know your look and feel. And we focus on, when people say, well, you can get a logo for $50 or you can get a logo for $5. What happens when you succeed?
You don't want to have to rebrand in another year or two, because then all the work we'll talk about later in public relations and marketing, to have to rebrand later, all of that is starting over with marketing and PR then.
Yeah. And I've seen that we actually had an email this morning from a client that said, hey, I think I need to do a new logo. And we're going to talk to him about it and say, why are you changing your branding right now? And what are your reasons behind it? Because he's been established for 20 years. Why do you want to rebrand at this point? And
it's great if you have something new to say. Yep. For example, Overstock.
Yeah, my favorite example recently is Overstock.com. They started in 97, and now, roughly 20 years later, they're doing this rebranding campaign, because when they started, they were a Overstock seller, and that was what they did. They sold closeout goods, and now they sell goods. They sell home furnishing items, and they sell remodel items and all of that. And so they're spending a lot of money on a rebranding advertising campaign to tell you, hey, we're not just overstocked goods anymore. And that now they can't change their name because that's who they are, but they're trying to tell you, come to us for new things also.
Right.
And so 20 years later, that's a hard thing to try to rebrand and redo.
That would give you a couple examples on this.
Yep. So we have a few of our clients that we have worked with. This is a logo example. These are a client based out of California, and they're called the Stacking Gurus, Your Posture Mechanics. And so they focus on health and wellness. They brought us this original logo to create, and they said, hey, we found this online. We thought maybe we could do something like that. And it kind of shows posture, and it kind of shows a Zen yin and yang idea. And, we said that to them of, well, that's a cool logo, but let's try to make you something that's a little bit more unique and tells your story in a different way. And,
so even though that showed balance, we wanted something that showed them and who they are.
And what I like to do is give a few options to a client. And so we gave them 3 different options that show stacking. And they ended up going with number 2. And what happened was we asked, hey, what colors do you want to do? And he had told us blues initially. And then he said, you know what? I want to use my high school colors. And so I looked up his high school colors, and we found the exact blues that they use. And so it kind of reflected where they came from. He grew up in Hawaii, so that was his Hawaii high school colors. And the logo incorporates a actual photo of them showing off their good posture. And And the triangle in the background incorporates one of their main philosophies, which is finding your triangle, which you can read about in their book. And so that's one of the things that I really enjoyed doing for them. And from there, we created them a website. So yeah, not only can you see how cool these guys are, they're, when you talk about for Jen now, they're 2 baby boomers, they're in their 60s. She still is a fitness trainer, and he was a Hollywood stuntman for years. And, so they have a very cool story to tell, and we wanted their branding and their website, their logo, all of that to reflect who they are and to really show that off.
Quick question. And Carol, Krista, we have permission from Mary and Allie to interject questions.
Thank you.
One that comes to mind. So again, without giving trade secrets, we won't know the difference, but from the time that you finalized the logo to what we're all looking at now, can you give us an idea in terms of the length of time and or the interaction with customers, with your clients before you settled on what we're looking at?
Yeah, so with these guys, what really happened was we've known them, we've never worked with them professionally, and they came to us with their book that they had written, and they didn't have a logo, they didn't have a website, they didn't have a Facebook page. They didn't really have anything other than this book to use as their calling card. And so we went from that, and it was probably, we started in August, and I want to say we finalized the website about beginning of November, when it was 100% done with back and forth reviews and changes.
But that's not just the logo. That's the whole.
That was the
whole getting them
Yep.
started.
Okay.
Again, coming from ground zero.
Yep.
But probably for a logo, what would you say?
For a logo, for them, it was probably a couple weeks at the long end, which was nice. We created, I think I created 6 options for them to go through as a logo, and we did a little bit of back and forth, and there was some difficulty of finding the font to match the font that they had used on their book. So there's just a couple ups and downs of little nuances like that I really personally like to be very consistent with.
It's generally easier when a company has an idea of who they are and what they want to be than in this case where they were starting from scratch.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, and for example, to show you another option, this was a blog logo that we did, and the original logo was just images of zests. And the blog is called Zest Blog, as you can see. And that logo, I mean, that was only about a week from start to finish of creating a new thing. And I apologize, there's a helicopter outside, so if you guys hear a little feedback, that's what's going on. But they settled on logo number 1, and we created a vertical and horizontal logo to use. And, I think it came out really well. And like that, it was pretty quick. It was a pretty quick turnaround, which was nice because they already had an idea of what we want, where we are, and what's going on.
Flip down to the next one. Yeah, and sometimes it just depends on the feedback from the customer too, how much they want to adapt. Like in the one that Allie had 3 options there, they might say, well, I like the font on this one, but I don't like the graphic behind it. I'd rather have the other one. So
yeah, you get a little bit of back and forth. And final example is this guy, the Westside Fisheries logo. You can say something about that.
This one, it's a commercial fishing business, and they actually wanted to incorporate something about Alaska and something about the Native Americans that live there too, because they're fishing out really pretty much in the wilderness. And we thought that this really represented both the fishing operation and the Alaska theme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that when you talk about, how long it takes like that, it can vary. This one, they had a really clear idea of saying, I want a totem pole-esque salmon, and we want to be able to incorporate that into the logo. And so really just finding, drawing the salmon and doing that was the hard part, but they knew exactly what they wanted. So coming up with a couple different options of that, and then really just this came together pretty quickly, and they love it. So we actually have hats being embroidered as we speak. So
I love it. Quick question, as far as local versus worldwide or a broader reach for your target audience, how do you kind of work that into your strategy, your marketing? If you want to just play in the local arena, or if you want to go worldwide?
In terms of in general, or?
Yes, as far as branding and reach.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the type of client, I think. International is, in every aspect, is completely different. So hopefully there's a lot of research behind, even PR, even in the PR world. Let's just use an easy example like London. The way they do PR is completely different over there. So a lot of companies that are doing international will have an international agency, and either an international agency or somebody over there that's doing it, and then a different agency here. Nationally, I think is not a problem either way. I mean, we had a sleep client that we did, complete national, everything, PR and marketing. And I don't think there was, I think that PR is kind of PR in a lot of ways, and marketing. You might think, though, international is pretty different, just in the word like telly versus phone.
Or crisps versus chips, Yeah.
Yeah. We have these crisps. And there's just so many things that are different in that way. You have to be aware of that in advance, but national is the same. Local, a good way to start is often local, is to do, a local campaign, which then often gets picked up nationally. And now with digital, everything is national, if not international.
And one thing to say on that, on the branding side, we have noticed, there's a lot of companies that you can work with that are international that might be based somewhere else. But one example that I really like is, if you've paid attention to Anheuser-Busch recently, they got bought by InBev a few years ago, and that's a Belgian-based company. And the Belgian company is putting marketing and advertising schemes that they think will resonate with Americans, but sometimes they're missing the mark. Last summer they rebranded the regular Budweiser as America, and it just said America on the cans. And some people gave them a hard time about it, because they're like, well, that's not really something that we identify with as America. So, but to the Belgians, that was the best way to brand it. So there can be some kind of missing the mark when it comes to that, when it's an international company branding here, or us trying to brand, a U.S. company trying to brand in Europe.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep. Yeah.
So the next step is now what? You've got everything defined. You've got your logo done. Then what happens? Well, you have to build momentum. We have to build excitement and just notice around your brand. So, so let's start, if we talk about public relations. This is kind of a long definition by PRSA, but to me, public relations is just how do you communicate with everybody that touches your business? So everybody that touches your business is big. Most people just think, well, it's our customer. Well, it is your customer, but it's also every vendor that you use, employees, lawyers, everybody that touches your business. It's important to communicate the same message across the brand. So an example I have of this is, for example, when I was at Schwinn, I was an executive assistant to the CEO. And the Wall Street Journal wanted to do an article, unbeknownst to me, about the office that they lived and worked in. So the researcher calls me and says, can you go just run in there and take a look at the office and let me know what it looks like, so I have an idea what we're gonna write about and photograph. And it was just a room. I didn't know what to say. I'm like, it's kind of nondescript.
It's an office with a computer.
Well, when they were done with it, it looked like Schwinn had exploded all over this office. And so she didn't know what, they handled it, but if they had let me in on it as an employee, I would have handled it better. They would have been excited about it and, and moved on from there. But then the next thing is of course dealing with the media. So how do you do that? Well, public relations is, everybody thinks of it as news releases, but there's so much more to it, and everything's merging marketing and PR now. So, and digital and social media. So news releases, what we use them for is we want other people to tell your story in your own words, how you say it, as opposed to just making things up, which they will if you don't provide the information. So what we're really doing is building relationships with these influencers, and they can be analysts if you're in the tech world, or they can be journalists, bloggers, Instagram influencers. So your news release is the basis of all of that, or can be if that's what you choose. But it could be just an Instagram post is the basis. But it's good to think of it in terms of a campaign and a whole series, thinking out what could happen. So media relations, articles, blogs, people don't tend to think, but speaking opportunities and awards are also a part of public relations. So a lot of people don't really understand that those awards are paid. Most often you just submit a submission for them and then they're paid, and eventually you see them in the newspaper or on TV, or, oh, they got the top 50 under 50 award. And also trade shows are a great opportunity to promote your own brand, as we saw at Forge Now. So,
so kind of talking about news releases, and everybody, you know about them. Most people that are in business know about them, but don't necessarily know, if they need them, what, kind of what the details are behind them. But we've seen that a lot, where it's really great to have a news release when you're celebrating something. So you're launching a new company and you want to say that we've opened a new store, we have a new CEO or a new high-level member of our team. Even things like we have a Father's Day promotion, or things like that. It's 4th of July and we're celebrating 4th of July through our company in this way. And most of those with a news release, they go, you can choose, kind of talking to Carol's question, you can go locally. You can go locally as far as your state, and it'll go to just the news desks in Colorado. And it'll go across the Denver Post and the Boulder Daily Camera and papers like that. Or you can go with a national news release that will go to every, USA Today. It'll go to Wall Street Journal. It'll go to those kind of desks. And you can do an international news release, and you can pick and choose your regions. If you know that you're going to be big in Eastern Europe, you can pick to do a news release in that region.
And part of what they do is they translate for you.
Yeah.
And into the local language, whatever that is. So sometimes, especially in China, that could be various segments of, dialects.
Yeah, 3 different types of languages, and so yeah, you can really pick and choose and knowing, kind of going back to knowing your company and knowing where you're headed. If you are going to go sell in China, or you need to do a promotion there, it's important to have known that when you get started. But that's news releases are really important and helpful because it does get you in front of reporters. It gets you onto the desk.
It delivers to the desk, not to individuals of these publications around the country. And the vendors that we recommend are any of these 3. There are so many free news releases. If you did go try and do it yourself, that they just don't go anywhere. So it's not worth your time. So use a good vendor.
Yeah.
If you're not using an agency.
Yeah.
And I can give a personal testimonial, Mary. You did a great job for our inaugural 4Gen Now. You did the release and you got it in front of some interesting people that I never would have been able to. So just a quick shout out, personal testimonial.
I think that went online to about 250 different publications, and that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anywhere between 150 to 270 is a good number. So.
Yeah, and so kind of going to that last question that says, will a news release get me into articles? It helps give you the credibility, and it helps get you in front of the reporters and in front of the media. But without media relations, you're not going to get into those articles. So you really want to work on developing these relationships with the media. And we were talking about this, and there's certain things that we like to encourage, especially a small business that's on a shoestring, that's starting up, to do on their own. And then there's media relations, and we don't really recommend that to be your thing to take on your own. And there's a couple of reasons for that.
Unless you've been doing it forever, because it's just difficult. Journalists tend to like to deal with a third party. There's a bit of a prestige in the public if you've done a news release, and if you have an agency. And then journalists just kind of like to not have to deal one-on-one with the end person. It just, they worry if they don't get published, then they'll have to have a fight on their hands, or so it's kind of good to have a third party do this piece. But it's a great way to get articles. It's also a great way, which the news release itself gives you backlinks for your own search engine optimization.
Yeah, and that's a nice thing when it comes to building a website and building that online presence. Just having the website or just having your social media doesn't necessarily mean anybody's going to find it. And it's kind of like if you open a store but you don't tell anybody where it is, nobody's going to just show up. Having those backlinks, it's almost like giving people directions to your store. So when somebody searches for you, like for us, if somebody searches marketing in Colorado, those backlinks help to have you show up and help to really get you in front of the people that you want to be in front of, and boost your rankings on Google and Yahoo and being in all of the search engine sites. So that's a really helpful tool in building your presence.
And some of these that we listed, there are tools that we like to use for media relations if you were trying to do it yourself. Haro and Profnet are ones that you might go look up. And Cision tends to be a more professional tool, although you could use this to distribute releases to individuals.
So then from there, you've done your branding, you've got a logo, you've got a website, you've got social media. Now what? And this is kind of where we like to say, we've seen so many different businesses that are on a shoestring that, they don't have $5,000 a month to spend on marketing and advertising. And what can you do yourself and what can you hire out. And it really just depends company to company and individual, where some people might really love social media and really understand it, and that's their forte, so they're going to take that on as the company. Where you might have somebody, we have a client that it is just hard to get Instagram posts up. And so she'll send me the picture she wants to put up, and we will put that up for her, just to give her one less thing to have to worry about in her business.
So I think it's look to your skills in terms of what things you want to do yourself, what you have a budget for. If you're trying to save money, do what you're good at. So if you're good at writing, then how about blogs? Mm-hmm. Do some blog writing. If you really love Instagram and like taking the pictures, you can do that and save some money that way. But all of it takes time, and that's partly why we're in existence.
Yep.
But time and expertise, and it's important to think strategically about what your goals are before you take it all on. And so that's what we have. We have, I know, a couple questions if anybody has any questions. If anybody wants a consultation, we are offering an hour consultation. If you mention the ForGen Now webinar, so you can always give us a call, shoot us an email, and take a look at our social media for any kind of resources on marketing and branding.
Fantastic. Carol, Krista, questions?
I'm a futurist. How do you see the future of marketing?
That is a big question.
Yeah.
It's almost hard to say, especially with all of what's going on in Facebook, and all of this digital mining and all of that has been in the news recently.
Yeah.
That people were really relying on social media, and for a long time they were saying PR is dead, media relations are dead, newspaper is dead, because social media has taken over. And now we've kind of seen this darker side of social media that people aren't so thrilled with. And, that's kind of changing the game and almost making more of a combination of old school and new school.
Yes.
In my mind, marketing is not going away.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook advertising is not going away either. I mean, I just think it's all going to adapt with artificial intelligence. We just have to keep adapting in different ways. And I think, but people are still writing more than ever and putting out content, whether it's video or writing.
Yep.
And it just does help to have a third party recognize your company.
Yeah.
That's not just you talking about it. So I think that's going to remain no matter what.
Cute.
Jim, any?
Yeah, I have a question, but Krista, before I ask, do you have one?
No, I don't have a question. I do appreciate the presentation, though.
So, ladies, I'll ask you a question then. So, as a startup myself, and so many of our community members, so your specialty, that you've mentioned, branding, marketing, and PR. These are the three pillars of Launching Labs, right? You know what I think would just be absolutely phenomenal? I don't know if you're in a position to offer it, but to offer we entrepreneurs a package with a definite monthly deliverables from you to the client and vice versa, that we can budget so that if we're going to family and friends, great. If we're going to investors, so that we can have it as a line item, as opposed to, I don't know about you, Carol, I don't know about you, Krista, but to have to negotiate with these specialists. I trust Launching Labs, I trust you, and I don't know why I haven't thought to ask you this in the past, but it just really seems so obvious.
We actually are working on that. Trying to come up with what the right package is for entrepreneurs, like including the logo, including the
Exactly.
of the PR side. So I think that that's a great suggestion, and we'll work on that.
We have seen that just in trying to come up with that of offering, a silver, gold, and platinum package kind of idea, and knowing that some people aren't going to need a website right now. Some people are going to need more content, and it is going to vary customer to customer or client to client, but it really can almost be a one size fits all with a little bit of tailoring here and there.
Mm-hmm. And it works better for the client too, because then you're not being charged hourly.
Yeah.
So that exactly, we don't want to be, not that I'm suggesting you do not, but we don't want to be nickel and dimed. We would like to know, I personally, okay, I trust you. What are your skill sets? What do you love doing for the client?
Yeah.
And then from a customer's perspective, it just would be so much easier if, okay, Launching Labs, this is what they specialize in. Specifically, Mary, I'm going to be working with you on this. Al, I'm going to be working with you on this. Great. And here's a package of options. So even, one size all is not going to fit, but if the budget, we know, right? We know how much we can afford on a monthly basis. So it would just be awesome, I think. Not that you need more business, but when you do need more business and you're just not relying on referrals, I think this would be really helpful, not just to ForGen now, but to many of our community members. Krista, Carol, does that make sense or no?
Oh, I think that is absolutely phenomenal. In my old Yellow Page phone book selling, we used to offer 3 people 3 options. You want to be representative in your community, whatever that is, worldwide or local. Do you want to be competitive in your industry, or do you want to dominate it? To me, that speaks to the 7 stages of growth, scalability, sustainability. Where are you at now, which is your question, and where do you want to be? We can help you get there faster. But defining 3 options, keeping it simple. You want to dominate, or do you just want to tiptoe in your market? I think that's brilliant. Allie, your gold, platinum, or whatever you call it, keeping it simple.
Just something along those lines. And we have found that it's definitely not one size fits all.
Yep.
We also have seen, we've gotten several clients. Some of them have their own website. They know how to do that. That's not part of the problem. And they have a logo, but they might not know what their font is or what their color is, or they need that brand guideline to be able to share with people. And that's a really important thing. I worked with a hat company that designed custom hats for people, and so I've seen an unbelievable amount of logos, and everything from just a small rowing club to the Army. And so we've done a little bit of everything. And I noticed that, and the reason why I bring up the Army is they had the best brand guideline I've ever seen. To the 1st Airborne Unit, every different thing. It told you the Alpha Bravo Foxtrot language. It told you everything that you needed to know about the brand that is the Army.
And when you can and can't use this one versus that one.
Yeah. And so that's one thing that I've learned is, even in just creating a logo, I can create a logo for anybody, but they also need to know how to use it. And
like at the house, somebody would come with a logo, but they didn't have the colors or the vectored file. Yeah. And if you have all of that, the vectored file, the colors and all that, you can do hats pretty fast. Yeah. Or if you have an event, a critical, t-shirt that you need made. Yeah. But if you don't have all that has to go backwards and be recreated. So. And now you're spending, and that was my experience. Now you're spending more money to get the right files when, you went the cheaper route on the initial, which sometimes is what you have to do. If you don't have the money to do a logo, but having that, all of your files, having a JPEG and a PDF, just to tell everybody out there, is what you want. And knowing what fonts were used and knowing what your colors are
is a really helpful thing when it comes to moving forward and succeeding. And that way, when you share with people, we're doing a logo for somebody with Keller Williams, and they had one of the most impressive brand guidelines I've ever seen. So they had the font files, they had where to use which font and where not to use what font, and how to do a yard sign and all of that. So it's a nice thing to know how to use your brand as well.
Okay. Ladies, I don't see an email. People want to email you.
It's either info@launching-labs, or you can do Mary, M-A-R-Y, @launching-labs.com. And phone and our website, launching-labs.com, will get you all of our info to reach out to us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Any other questions? We're just about at the 45 minutes. Try to be respectful of everybody's time. Any other questions?
I just have a quick one. You know, some of the smaller companies that you work for, how do you make sure, what strategies might you use to make sure that you are representing their authentic voice and also kind of your marketing ideas? How do you reconcile the two?
That's primarily just talking to them and working out a messaging. If we can, work out a messaging document from the beginning.
One of the biggest things like that are our Stacking Gurus example, since you've seen their logo and their website. It was helpful to have that book reference that we could, not only call them and talk to them, but we could also read their book and remember how their voices, since they had written it, it really gave us an idea of how they like to speak. And that's one of the things that we really focus on is, having an hour conversation here and there about once a week, especially when you're starting, to get an idea of what do you like and what don't you like. And for both of us,
for example, we just worked with this company called Last Mile, that they have an incubator inside of the San Quentin prison. And so one of the questions is to your point, are there words we need to avoid, like inmates or prisoner or those kinds of things? And sometimes there is. Mm-hmm. They end up using the words returned citizen for when somebody graduates and goes out into the world. So that was one of the questions that came up, and it's just important. We ended up spending quite a bit of time just reviewing their own documents and refining it down, to a simple message. Yeah,
and I think it's that, to answer your question, it's the initial start, starting of working together, making sure that we fully understand, like you said, who you are, what is your authentic voice, what are the important keywords to use and not to use when it comes to your company, and figuring all of that out. And it might take a little bit of extra time at the beginning, but it's going to pay off in the long run.
And that's where we do try and not nickel and dime you, because I think that's one of the more important.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Ladies, thank you very, very much. Mary, Allie, awesome presentation. Will you, is it okay to post the PowerPoint so that any of our community members, they can download that? We can post that on our site?
Absolutely.
Great. Any last minute, your last piece of advice to either startup solopreneurs in the ideation stage, maybe just one final word of suggestion as to how to go about finding the right specialists?
I think, well, for finding the right specialists, do your homework and double check and see who's going to call you back and who's not. But my biggest thing is believe you're going to succeed, and believe in your company, believe in your business, and believe that you are going to succeed, and put those goals on paper, and try your best to follow through with them.
Stick with it.
Yeah, stick with it, and don't give up. So
awesome. Yeah, Winston Churchill was asked, giving away my boomer age, but Winston Churchill was asked what the greatest lesson he learned in his life was, and he immediately replied, "I can sum up the greatest lesson that I've learned in my life in 7 words. Never give up, never, ever give up." Right.
Love that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very
Well
much,
said.
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Well
you.
done, Mary Allison. Thanks, Jim. Nice meeting you, Krista.
Nice to meet you as well, Carol. Thank you.